Hello, my friends. Welcome to Anti-Chess Tips and Tricks. I'm going to go through a few of my own personal tips to make you a better player. This is just a brief little list here, but I'm going to go through examples of a few of these different ones. And I think if you're looking at this list and you look at the first one, you might think, wow, are you some sort of genius? Play a lot of games and you get better. Well, yes, that is the most obvious one, but it is actually one of the more important ones. The more you play, the more you can kind of get a feel for this game and the difference it is from chess. And you can kind of get these moves that become more instinctive. So, yep, the first one's an obvious one, but let's move on. So now I've got some examples. The next two, keep your king and beat lost openings. So this first example game here, and we have bishop b7 played on the second move, which is losing for black. And really, it's one of those openings that looks good for new players. You're losing a lot of material, but actually, it's going to end up that with the few pieces black has left, they're not going to have a lot of space or mobility, and white will have the advantage. So there's a few different ways this can go. White does have to play the moves properly. Bishop takes or king takes are fine here. And this setup is very normal. So we can kind of look at this position and think, hang on, black doesn't have their king, white does. Black has these two rooks, but they're kind of squeezed up the back here. And we're going to see how that might be a disadvantage for black, not having the king to be able to cause some problems later. So after a few more moves, and we can already see this next move, black's going to make an error. That's going to be a problem, and we'll see this game quickly will finish. And this rook is now loose. So once the rook is out, there's no stopping it. It's going to take the lot very easily. You can see Aditya makes no mistake in getting rid of everything fairly quickly. All right. So again, let's go back to a possible other alternative. So while king f3 is okay, the best move is probably e5 to really cramp this knight back here to give it no space at all. And even if black tries to create some space later, we can see eventually either the rooks or the knight are going to open up somehow. So either we're going to have this pawn going to be able to push up and the knight take everything, or we're going to be able to open this pawn so that the rook can come down and grab the lot. So a possible continuation, just maneuver into that space. And here we force. So either the knight or the rook will come out. So obviously if this pawn takes, pawn up, the knight will be able to capture the lot. And equally, if this one does, the rook comes out, just like the real game. So the two lessons there, know how to beat these lost openings, because there are still players that played to bishop b7. Now this gentleman here is 1900. I can't believe in 1900 would play bishop b7, but hey, they still do it, maybe in fast, because this is a quick game. And if you can rattle off those moves very quickly, it puts a lot of pressure on white to be able to find the win. So maybe that's why. But let's move on to the next lesson. There is no check. All right, now that seems very straightforward. I went over it even in the very first introductory lesson. We know there's no check, well, so what? But what I want to really emphasize is the problems this causes for us chess players. This idea of check is so ingrained in everything we do that we automatically will never ever, even subconsciously, move our king into check. So what does that mean, and what kind of problems get caused? This is an example. And sorry to Sokatan, forgive me, for showing this game. It's a bit embarrassing, but this is one of those mistakes, but I believe that this idea of check is somehow subconsciously involved here. So it's Black's move. Black is winning this very easily. After f5, this move is forced, and very simple, bishop b7 will win the game quickly for Black. But unfortunately, Black plays king f8. Why? Why, oh why would we make such a terrible blunder? Sokatan's a very good player, so she has lots of time here. Why did she do it? Well, my explanation is there is this subconscious idea about check, and you kind of look at it and maybe half your brain is thinking, yeah, I know that the bishop's going to take and this pawn's defended and things are going on, but half the brain is also thinking, you're in check, get out of check, get out of check. And that is maybe what occurred here. So unfortunately, the game continued like this, and white won very quickly. So let's see another example. And we look at this position. It's not maybe the easiest win of all time, but it's really not far off. If we look at it for a few seconds, we should see Black is going to win this very easily. However, Black is a little bit low on time, only a few seconds, and this is what happens. So after takes, all right, that's the right move, bishop c5. And really, even a beginner player can very clearly see, after rook c8, rook takes rook, and then king d8, Black's going to win. However, Black suddenly had this psychological problem and went, wait a minute, if I do rook c8 check, I can't do it. Quick, do another move. Oh no. All right. So this is the kind of cognitive dissonance, the conflict within about chess and what it does to your anti-chess play. So after this, Black has to really scramble. And this is also a lesson about time. And we can see there's 2 seconds left. Now, there's not enough time to really be able to stop and think about this position. Black has to very, very quickly think, where can my king go to lose? And here, king e6 is going to win next move, but Black didn't have time for that. I was already looking before about this square. I just quickly saw this square is covered by knight, pawn, and rook. Let's just try and get the king to that square in my 2 seconds I have left. So my king comes this way. And now I'm just going to be able to do it. So a very lucky escape after, a really easy blunder. But again, it's this idea of check we need to watch out for. So that is my next important lesson, watching out for check. Principles first and speed later. So obviously what we want to do, get your skills down first before you start playing 1-0 and 0.5 and these silly games, because they are fun, but if you get those real tactics down first, it's going to become easier later, and you might be able to find the wins like Black did in that game before. Next, basic promotions. So this is a good example here. Many times in the ending, a rook promotion is the way to go. It gives you the most options. You're probably able to line up a rook down a file easily so the pawn can take it later, but sometimes it's not going to work. So in this position here, it's Black's move. Black must take the knight and promote. But what do we promote to? And if we're going to promote to rook, we actually find this is losing. So we can quickly see the combination of moves here, and we cannot promote to rook. So going back, what about if we've got low time and we think, is there a chance for a quick draw? This is when I can look and see, white has a white squared bishop. If I promote to bishop on a dark square, that should at least guarantee me a draw. So if I did promote to bishop, this is a possible continuation. And after this, well, not that move, because after, well, I mean, if white just moves the bishop back and forth, and then we can see a clear draw. Okay, so that is a way to draw when you can see the bishops are on the opposite diagonal. But the best move here is to promote to king. And why is it okay to promote to king? We can probably have time to get this king down the board far enough so they can get in front of one of the pawns. And this is how we're going to win this game. So very quickly, doesn't matter about that. And we have enough time to get in front of the last pawn and win the game. So these are your ideas for promotions. If you're a fairly new player, it's more about finding which piece is good to promote to. Try to calculate a few moves in advance. See if it is safe to promote to the thing you want and what could be best. If you're a better player, the skill is going to become doing this very quickly, being able to see rapidly the position, take stock, and find the right piece to promote to. Okay. And lastly, something called intermediate moves. This is a bit of an advanced concept. I didn't actually know the word intermediate until maybe a few months ago. I always called it something else, like an in-between move or an extra move. But to best highlight this, there's a nice position here. And we can see next move, white is threatening to take this pawn. It must take it on the next move. And if we do nothing, then the rook must recapture. And this could give us some potential problems. However, black has this very interesting in-between move called an intermediate move that gives us extra time. So we can see there is a way to save some time here and make white keep on capturing our pieces while we take something else. And the brilliant move is king f6. This is forced. This is forced. And now the rook must capture either the pawn or the rook. And after this position, black should win fairly easily. So for example, if takes rook, this is going to line up nicely here, taking this pawn, and so on, until we lose the king last. This is a pretty advanced skill, and I'm going to talk more about intermediates in future videos, but it is good to be aware of what they are and to try to find them if we can. All right. So those are my tips and tricks for you to become a better player. Best of luck. Hope you improve well. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.